A frail woman became pregnant 71 times during 6 months, but every time she was pregnant, her husband beat her until she miscarried. For every child that he caused to be aborted, he celebrated and was happy. When the woman became pregnant for the 72nd time, her husband allowed her to have the child. However, the child was not a normal child at all. The woman summoned the midwife, but the midwife died of fright. Meanwhile, the husband was delighted because he was a legendary dancer. He made a pact with a ghost in order to gain inspiration for his dances, and it seems that the pact worked. The father covered the child's face with a mask and raised him like a dog. He made him fight with the dogs for his share of food whenever he felt hungry. He also made him sleep with the dogs when he was tired. Because of that, the villagers came to call him Inuo. One day, Inuo lay in the sun when he heard the sound of a biwa. He followed the sound and realized that it was his father, a dancer, entertaining his two younger brothers. However, for as long as he watched his father dance, the two younger brothers could not grasp the moves. When he watched the dance, he could remember every single move and repeat it effortlessly. He did not only copy the dance, he made up his own moves and made it look better than the original dance. Once he discovered his passion for dancing, he began to practice day and night. He mastered the dance when something incredible happened. He grew another human leg. Happy with his new leg, he danced around enthusiastically and ran down the streets to report the good news to the village. He assumed that the villagers would accept him once he had a human leg, but it seems that the sight of his leg disgusts the people instead. He could only feel his hatred towards humanity grow when he realized how cruelly the villagers had treated him. Inu-O walked down the street until he reached the middle of the village and removed the mask that he wore for 8 years. The villagers were horrified by his appearance and ran off in fear and disgust. Seeing what happens, Inu-O laughed. After that, Inu-O was feared by everyone. He would come out every night and scare people passing by. One night he met an extraordinary human who was not afraid of his appearance. He introduced himself as Tamona, a blind musician who happened to carry a biwa on his back. He was fascinated by the sound of the biwa, and Inu-O asked him to play a song. When he heard the melody that the biwa produced, he danced happily and unconsciously. Inu-O and Tamona danced together beautifully under the bright moonlight, and the beautiful music that flowed from the biwa complemented the night. Their performance was so perfect and flawless that it seemed as if they were destined to meet each other. When the song finished, Inu-O thanked Tamona for introducing him to the music. As he was playing songs for Inu-O, he decided to share the steamed buns that he stole with Tamona. As they ate, they began to tell each other about their past stories. Tamona was the son of a fisherman. One day, a treasure hunter found Tamona's father and asked him to retrieve a chest of treasure from the Hike clan that was said to have sunk in the sea. Tamona's father initially refused the offer, but the money was too tempting. He agreed to the deal and they set sail to find the chest of treasure. However, it was not easy to get to the chest. Along the way, they encountered a ghostly crab that Tamona did not know was a Hike samurai. One day, Tamona's father dove with him into the deep sea and got the chest that they sought. When he opened the chest, he realized that it did not contain any treasure. It only contained a sword. However, when he took it, a sword aura shot straight up to the sky and sliced his body in two. Tamona also got hit by the aura and it blinded him. After that, Tamona's mother went crazy and became unable to care for him. From then on, Tamona became a drifter after being chased down by his mother. However, his father's ghost remained by his side and reminded him of the revenge that he promised to deliver to the Hike clan. One day, he met a blind monk who knew music played on the biwa. The monk sang a song about the Hike clan and their defeat at the hands of the Genji. The Hike samurais had all jumped into the sea when pursued by the Genji forces, leaving only a few survivors to hide and avoid detection. Upon hearing the tale, Tamona approached the monk and asked him where the surviving Hike samurais were. He was determined to uncover all the secrets and find the remaining Hike samurais to deliver the revenge that his father could not finish. Although Tamona's father did not know where the remaining Hike samurais were, he and the monk formed a strong bond due to their friendship. He also took Tamona in as his apprentice and trained him to play the biwa. One day, the master and Tamona performed a song for a rich household. After they finished their performance, the rich host warmly welcomed them and invited them for dinner. During dinner, the monk mentioned that Tamona was seeking the remaining Hike samurais. The rich host warned them to be careful, for those who played the biwa had been murdered after playing the song for the Hike samurais and their ghosts. Although Tamona was unhappy, he and his master continued their journey from town to town performing the Hike song. Unfortunately, they reached Kyoto after a while and they had to join the local biwa guild and change Tamona's name to Tomoichi. However, Tamona's father, a ghost, was unhappy because Tamona changed his name. He told Tamona that he would never be able to find him if he changed his name. He also reminded him that he had to deliver the revenge that he was promised. One night, Tamona, who was feeling depressed, went out to relieve his burdens. To his surprise, he met Inuo and told him some of his sad stories. Inuo and Tamona had become best friends after meeting each other. He also told Tamona sad news. Tamona's mother was dead and his body was slowly disappearing since he would soon be a ghost as well. He had given up seeking revenge and decided to abandon the mission because of his unfortunate circumstances. After that, he said goodbye to Tamona and departed. Tamona asked Inuo whether there were other ghosts nearby. Inuo's father told him that the whole mountain was filled with the ghosts of Hike samurais. He added that it was the dwelling place of the remaining Hike samurais that had escaped the wrath of the Genji samurais. Inuo's father said that when he finished speaking, the ghosts of Hike samurais would appear before them. However, each ghost had a different story to tell. He also added that all the haunting tales of the Hike samurais would inspire Inuo and Tomona. When he finished talking, the ghosts of Hike samurais appeared before Inuo and Tomona. The ghosts told all the sad stories that led to their deaths, and they all joined together to tell one story. The stories that the ghostly samurais told created a new form of performance that would captivate everyone. Tomona and Inuo danced and sang as they told the stories and performed in all the streets. After that, the whole village was amazed by their performance and joined them in dancing. Inuo and Tomona performed more and more. Eventually, they had become popular all over the country. In the meanwhile, Inuo's father had been ignored. Even the few remaining audience members had been captivated by Inuo. In addition, Inuo built a stage and performed the hike song for the villagers. He always performed the tale of the hike samurais to the villagers. Inuo described how the hike samurais got defeated due to the brave attacks of the Genji samurais. He also described how the hike samurais lost their morale due to their losses, and how the few remaining samurais escaped to the sea. However, the hike samurais who failed to reach the sea were captured and had their legs and arms cut off by the Genji samurais. Inuo reenacted that scene so realistically that the audience always felt like they were there when it happened. After his performance, Inuo's monstrous arm transformed back to a human arm. Inuo became famous for his performance, and everyone in the village talked of his amazing skills. He had even gained fame as an idol. After his first performance, Inuo began his second performance. He narrated the final naval battle that led to the hike samurais losing the war. He also described how the hike samurais were chased into the sea, and how the hike samurai leader and his wife, who held their 8-year-old son in her arms, jumped into the sea with the sacred sword Kusanagi no Tsurugi. With that, the hike samurais had all perished, save for a few warriors who survived the battle and hid deep in the mountains. Towards the end, Inuo's performance became so energetic that the audience sang along with him. In addition, the new style of performance captivated the audience until the end. The audience had joined in the singing, and Inuo's clothes blew off in the wind as he danced. His scales all disappeared at the end of the performance. In this manner, Inuo and Tomona became famous for their performance all over the country. Everyone wanted to see them perform, and many nobles came to watch their performance every day. However, Inuo always refused to remove his mask to show his face. Tomona, however, disliked the crowds because he was a solitary man. Whenever the festival was over, he stayed in the mountains behind the village and played the biwa. Inuo's two younger brothers still had not mastered dancing as time went by. They were not able to inherit their father's legacy as a dancer no matter how hard Inuo's father trained them. The frustration in Inuo's father's heart grew day by day, and he decided to punish them severely. However, Inuo's father saw Inuo performing an amazing dance outside the house and envied him immensely. He immediately ran out and kicked Inuo away. Inuo, on the other hand, took it lightly. Inuo often played biwa songs with Tomona and discussed dancing. Inuo gradually improved his dancing skills without him realizing it. 5 years had passed since Inuo left, and he and Tomona had grown up to be young men. Inuo had also discovered something strange for him. He realized that the more he improved his dancing skills, the more his monstrous body changed to a human body. Inuo was surprised by this discovery and feared that he was cursed by some kind of ghost. Tomona realized that Inuo had the same problem that he had with his father's ghost. He decided to summon his father's ghost to ask him what was happening to Inuo. Inuo's father, a ghost, came out of his body after Tomona summoned him. When Inuo continued playing biwa songs, he realized Inuo's purpose in life. Inuo was not cursed by the Hike clan's ghosts, but rather they wanted to use him to tell their stories to the world so that their tales would never be forgot. Tomona strongly supported Inuo. The two of them decided to start spreading news of the Hike clan stories all over the world. They decided to tell every person in every street the haunting tales of the Hike clan. However, their fame grew so fast that even the shogun Ashikaga had heard of their performance and invited them to perform for him. He also asked Inuo's father to ensure that Inuo would remove his mask before he performed for him. When Inuo's father heard this, he was delighted because he believed that Ashikaga would be terrified by the sight of Inuo's monstrous face. He also knew that making Ashikaga terrified would lead to him being executed. Inuo's father agreed to the request because Inuo's performance of the Hike song had made him jealous. He had finally found a good opportunity to get rid of Inuo. Inuo's father informed Inuo that Ashikaga wanted him to perform for him, and that he had to take off his mask. Inuo was reluctant to comply with the request, but he had no choice but to accept since he was ordered by Ashikaga. However, he continued to train and prepare for the day of the performance. One day, the day of the performance for Ashikaga had finally come. Nobles and samurais had gathered at the designated place. When Inuo and Tomona had entered the hall wearing their best clothes and heard the cheers of the crowd, Inuo suddenly felt that something was terribly wrong. He felt as if that day would be the day that he would finally give up performing. Tomona tried to convince him not to think about those thoughts. When they arrived on the stage, the performance commenced. Inuo wore the armor of a samurai and narrated the tragedy of the Hike samurais who had all become ghosts after dying in battle. When Inuo recited the story of those Hike samurais, he portrayed the ghosts in the most exquisite manner with his wonderful dance. He made people realize how loyal and honorable the Hike samurais had been to the Hike clan. Inuo then jumped into the water and shone like gold in the sunlight. He prayed that the souls of those Hike samurais who had drowned in the sea would reach heaven. Inuo continued to dance in an amazing manner as he attracted more and more ghosts to join in the dance. Inuo realized that the ghosts all wanted to tell their own stories. Inuo made an up-tempo performance and began telling the story of how the Hike samurais had all been defeated by the Genji samurais. This was the reason why the ghosts of the Hike samurais had become trapped in this world. Their grievances and anger had not been aired because no one had ever known about the battle and the massacre. The ghosts of the Hike samurais then entered Inuo's mind and told him all the details that had happened on that day. It turned out that it was Ashikaga who had caused Tomona's father to die. Ashikaga wanted to rule the entire country, so he sent people disguised as merchants to find the 3 treasures that the Hike samurais had possessed. However, 2 of the treasures had already been found, and the last one, Kusanagi no Tsurugi, had been lost in the sea. Ashikaga's men followed Tomona's father to find the treasure, but he did not know what they wanted. They were surprised to find out that the blade had incredible powers. Unfortunately, Tomona's father was killed by the blade. The ghosts of the Hike samurais also told Inuo the real reason why he had been transformed into a monster. It all started with Inuo's father. He made a pact with the masked ghost who had been created from the ghosts of the Hike samurais. He promised the masked ghost that he would kill every Biwa player and use their collected stories to inspire his dance. Every time he killed one of the Biwa players, he got more stories from the masked ghost. However, there were only a limited number of Biwa players. When he had finished killing them all, Inuo's father decided to make another pact with the masked ghost. He used his own unborn son as the price for the pact, and he was delighted when the deal was completed. Inuo became a monster as a result of this, but he could transform between a human and a monster. Inuo was surprised by the stories that the ghosts of the Hike samurais had told him. He continued to dance as he thought about the reasons behind everything that had occurred. In the meanwhile, Inuo's father had been watching the performance from a distance, and was furious that Inuo had performed exceptionally. He decided to make the masked ghost kill Inuo at that moment because his son had become better than him. The masked ghost refused to obey his orders, so it killed Inuo's father instead. It realized that Inuo's father had become greedy. When Inuo removed his mask at the end of the performance, his face had completely transformed into that of a human. Everyone assumed that Inuo and Tomona would continue to perform together, but none of them realized that Inuo and Tomona's stories of the Hike samurais had made Inuo and Tomona enemies of Ashikaga. Ashikaga forbade everyone from singing or telling the stories of the Hike samurais, and ordered his men to kill every single musician who had participated in Inuo and Tomona's performance. Fortunately, Tomona managed to escape, and he ran towards the Biwa guild to seek help from his master. He did not understand what he had done to anger Ashikaga by just playing the Biwa. His master told him to change his name to Tomoichi, and hide his identity from his enemies to protect himself. One day the pursuers found Tomona and they kicked and hit him until he was barely conscious. They tried to kill him with their swords, but his master sacrificed himself to save Tomona from them. After watching his master die by his side, Tomona went berserk and charged towards his attackers. However, he was defeated and thrown into prison. In the meantime, Inuo had also been imprisoned in Ashikaga's palace. Ashikaga ordered him to stop performing the Hike song, but he refused to comply with the order. Ashikaga threatened Tomona's life to persuade Inuo, and Inuo reluctantly gave up dancing and became a servant for Ashikaga. In the meanwhile, Tomona was released from prison when his legs were broken by his pursuers. He could barely survive, but he still refused to give up. Using a cart to push himself around, he went back to the streets and continued singing about the Hike samurais. His hands were later cut off, but he still sang until the day he died. 600 years passed since Tomona and Inuo had performed together. One night, Tomona's ghost was walking along the street when he heard a biwa song. He was surprised to see Inuo's ghost and danced with him. Inuo had been searching for Tomona's ghost for 600 years. The two of them returned to their youthful forms when they met each other on that night under the bright sky. At that moment, there was no fame, no status, and no oppression from the higher authorities. There was only their love for performing and the freedom that had always been theirs. 600 years later, the souls of Inuo and Tomona danced together once more. It was the ultimate expression of their friendship and freedom. Something that could not be crushed by authorities and something that could not be taken away by time. Their friendship went beyond appearance, identity, and even fate. Even though Tomona was blind and Inuo's monstrous appearance was something he had never seen, he saw the fire that was in Inuo's heart. And through Tomona's music on the biwa, Inuo found the ultimate expression of himself. They inspired each other and completed each other. If you are feeling lost in life and you don't know where your path is taking you, that's okay. But know this. There is a voice inside you that only you can hear. Only you can make that voice be heard. Find it, protect it, and then, like Inuo and Timona, dance a dance that is uniquely you.